Hey everyone, and welcome to Cooking Companion TV. I'm Jenna Edwards, and this is 8 ways to cook asparagus. Give this video a thumbs up if you like it, and let's get right to it. On the wood board, we have roasted and broiled, which are basically the same thing. Roasted is easier because it's more predictable. Both give the end leaves a nice crisp. Then we have raw sliced, and some of this will get marinated in a vinaigrette for salads or bruschetta toppings. Shavings that will fry up, don't throw those away. And there are chapters in the description below, so you can jump right to the one you want, by the way. And now we have steamed, sauteed, or pan roasted, and shallow boiled or braised. One of the tips I read about was soaking the spears for just 5 minutes to help rehydrate them so they're more tender when cooked. I can't say I noticed a difference here, but if you eat it a lot, it may be worth it. Another note is to save the young, thin spears for roasting and sauteing. The thicker ones are great for shaving, steaming, and boiling. The third note is to always cut off the bottom inch or so. It's rough and stringy. You could cook them down and puree them and strain out the tough strings and use them for soup or a spread or a dip. If you want to saute the medium or thicker stalks, give them a little shave. And these are the pieces that you'll save for frying. You could shave down the entire spear and use those shavings for a salad. You have to lay them down flat like this, otherwise you'll break your spears. I'm saving these spears for sauteing, so they are somewhat thin enough to cook quickly and evenly. For frying the shavings, toss them with very thin flour like Wondra flour, or as I'm using here, potato starch. You could use cornstarch or even heavily sifted chickpea flour. Regular flour won't work because it's too heavy. You can thin out 1 cup of all-purpose flour by replacing 2 tablespoons with cornstarch and sifting it twice. That should aerate it enough to get by. For 1 bunch's worth of shavings, you need 1 cup of flour. This is just a few spears worth, so I'm using half a tablespoon of potato starch. They should look white. That's your visual cue. Meanwhile, heat your oil to 350 degrees. I'm using peanut oil. Add them to the oil in small batches. They go quickly. If you're new to the channel, I am notorious for using pots that are too small. And I shouldn't have put in all the shavings at one time. But they fry in literally 1 minute. I found this technique on food52.com, and the author suggests topping poached eggs with these. Yum. Adding them to sandwiches, yes, and definitely to salads. But really, you can eat them in the kitchen. You can finish them off before they ever make it anywhere else. So they'll start to turn light brown. Take them out before they go dark brown or burned. Rest them on a paper towel and get ready to sprinkle this on everything if you don't eat them all immediately. Just a generous sprinkle of salt and they're good to go. Next up, marinated strips. We'll try to get these wider than the leftover shavings, and we'll aim to run the peeler along the entire spear using a little pressure to keep it even. These spears are still only half the length of a regular one because I'm using broken ones for this application, but you can do this for an entire spear after you've cut off the ends. These pieces will probably be thicker than the leftover shavings. You may have to slice the last strip into julienne strips so it's not thick, and the difference in texture is pretty divine. You can leave them raw, but they're best if you toss them with a vinaigrette or just a dash of your favorite vinegar and high-quality olive oil. Then toss it with arugula and feta or goat cheese crumbles. Use it as a fresh bruschetta or even bake pizza dough into flatbread, drizzle it with olive oil, and top with this. This one is tender and tasty. Now for the third option, we'll just slice them up raw. The leafy ends are super tender and don't really need to be cooked, and the stalks should be sliced thinly to avoid becoming overwhelming. They are prettiest when cut on the bias, which is an extreme diagonal. It's easiest and safest if you leave your knife where it's comfortable and move the vegetable around to create the diagonal slice. You'd use this application tossed in salads. Keeping the stalk slices thin will give you nice bites of a fresh crisp and that classic asparagus flavor. You can do this with thin or thick stalks, and you still need to chop off those ends. Number 4, roasting. After cutting off those ends, throw the spears into Ziploc bags or a bowl with olive oil, 3 tablespoons for an entire bunch. So this is, maybe 1 or half a tablespoon. And toss it with salt and pepper and optional aromatics like minced garlic. We regularly toss vegetables like this for roasting. Give it a good massage and make sure the oil and seasoning coat all the spears. Then pour them onto a baking sheet. It's easy prep, doesn't need babysitting in the oven, and it has the most flavor. This technique also kills the bitterness. Roast for 12 to 15 minutes at 425 degrees or 220 Celsius. They come out like this, well cooked with crispy leaves. I loved this application. You can also sprinkle them with grated Parmesan or pecorino or even ground almonds for a boost of umami or to keep it vegan. Number 5 is broiling, which is almost identical to roasting. Prep the same way, tossing the spears with olive oil and seasonings, pour onto a baking sheet, and broil on low for 6 minutes or until you see slight charring. Roasting is less babysitting for the same outcome. On the right is the broiled spears. On the left is the roasted spears. The broiled spears are ever so slightly less tender. Number 6, shallow boiled or braised. In a skillet, pour in 3/4 of an inch of water and bring it to a boil. Add in aromatics like a garlic clove, bay leaf, and even a strip of lemon peel, and of course, salt it well. Then add in the spears in a single layer. Take note that your skillet needs to be wide enough to handle the entire spear. This is just barely passing, and at least the leaves are already tender. We like this one because it's pretty quick to bring the shallow water to a boil, and the aromatics give a lot of flavor. You could even use some chicken stock and wine in the water as well. The texture ends up being pretty soft. If you're already boiling a pot of water, like for pasta, you can fully immerse the stalks in that, but otherwise there's no need to wait all that time when you can just do this. If the water doesn't cover your asparagus, cover the pan so the steam cooks the spears from the top. Cook for about 5 minutes or until the spear falls off a fork when pierced, then drain and serve. Number 7, sauteed or pan roasted or pan fried. In a skillet that can hold your spears in a single layer, heat a tablespoon of oil on medium heat and add in your spears. This is best with young, thin spears. Let them cook for a minute and then roll them around with a spatula to ensure they're cooked on all sides. These are also the spears where I shaved the ends. In this application, we need them to cook evenly on all sides and on both ends. And when you're finished, you can squeeze on lemon juice or toss them in grated cheese. Number 8, steaming. In a pot that can hold a strainer or steamer basket, bring an inch of water to a boil, add the spears to the basket, and cover, steaming for 5 to 10 minutes, depending on the width of your spears and how tender or al dente you like them. You can probably add aromatics to the boiling liquid like herbs and lemon peel. Of course, if your spears are too long, you'll have to finagle the cover to not chop off the tips. When they're done, try to shock them in cold water to stop the cooking and maintain the bright color. Otherwise, they turn into an olive green. All right, everyone, that's it for this run-through of 8 ways to cook asparagus. Of course, aromatics and seasonings are completely up to you, including adding cheese or butter instead of using oil. Directions and links to my sources are in the video description below and at cookingcompaniontv.com/asparagus. Give this video a thumbs up if you like it and subscribe to this channel for more demos just like this. I'm Jenna Edwards and thanks for watching.